Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and before I get into today's review, I would like to take a moment to issue a brief apology. You guys have probably noticed that my upload schedule has been very dry throughout the month of June. I haven't actually uploaded a conventional album review this entire month, and I've been trying to put out some form of content semi-regularly, at least like once a week on this channel, but as you can probably tell from the uploads that I've been doing, I've been really crazy busy this month. There's a lot of new and really exciting stuff happening, one of those being that I got a promotion at Your EDM and I'm kind of trying to train into that position. To make a long story short, I've just got a lot going on, and hopefully July will be a good month for me to kind of get back into the swing of things. If you guys can, please try to keep it light on the review request. I'm already planning on reviewing the new Marshmallow album, the new Sophie album, the new Sakura Burst album, the new Owl City album, the new Yellow Claw album, and the new Pendulum Reworks album. Everything else is most likely going to get thrown into my next rapid fire review video, which will hopefully come sooner than later. But due to the fact that that Pendulum Reworks album is coming right around the corner, I thought it would be wise to do a review of one of the band's full-length studio albums. And what better of an album would there have been to review than the one that turned 10 years old earlier this year? The band's sophomore album, in Silico. Now, to preface my review of this album, I will say my journey with Pendulum is a little bit backwards. My sister actually introduced me to Knife Party in 2012, and I absolutely fell in love with their sound. I couldn't tell you how many times I've listened to the Rage Valley EP. As I dug deeper and deeper into Knife Party's music, I came to realize that it wasn't some standalone project that came out of nowhere, but more or less an offshoot of the band Pendulum. With Knife Party, of course, being comprised of two of Pendulum's frontmen, vocalist and producer Rob Swire, and bassist Gareth McGrillen. With the first Pendulum song I was exposed to being The Island, I of course started with Immersion and then kind of worked my way backwards. To my surprise, In Silico seemed to be the most universally disliked Pendulum album, and as someone who had started off with and thoroughly enjoyed Immersion, I never really understood that, considering what Pendulum was doing with Immersion and In Silico was really not that sonically different. It's electronic rock meets very synth-heavy drum and bass. It's not that complicated. However, in preparation for this review, I did force myself to listen through Pendulum's 3 albums chronologically, and I think I better understand now why In Silico seemed like such a distasteful album at the time of its release. Hold Your Color was a very smooth, atmospheric, jungle drum and bass album with a lot of reggae influence. In Silico is maybe the complete opposite, with it being hard, fast-paced, and heavy almost the entire way through. It's almost more of a rock album than it is a drum and bass album, and Swire's voice essentially went from being a background element to center stage. Though I personally think Rob Swire's voice is iconic and very distinguishable, I can see why people wouldn't be a fan of this. Speaking totally objectively, he's really not a great vocalist, and you can tell by the amount of auto-tune he's constantly drenched in, and ultimately making that the focus of an album that already features a slew of early 2000s rock music cliches kinda seems like a mistake. Regardless of any of that though, I think this album is very good. As I was mentioning earlier in regards to Rob's voice, one of the things that I think makes this album really great is its distinguishability. While it does have a lot of rock cliches, I feel like those cliches are only there to anchor it into the genre, while Rob is doing a lot of really cool stuff in regards to the production, to the lyrics, to the synth melodies. I can earnestly say in good faith that I've never heard an album quite like this one. On top of that, this album is also kind of a staple in the drum and bass world. I mean, if you hear any D&B tune that features rock elements, the producer is most likely looking toward this album, Immersion, and maybe The Prodigy's first couple albums for inspiration. Not to mention that In Silico also laid the groundwork for what is undeniably one of my favorite albums ever. Of course, I don't think it's absolutely perfect, but I think for what Pendulum was sonically trying to do, they pretty much hit the nail on the head. Showdown, I think, is a pretty great first track for this album to have. I don't think the intro is absolutely as epic as Hold Your Color's intro, but I think this song does a really good job of kind of trying to set the tone of In Silico. It's very heavy, fast-paced, and energetic. That lead guitar melody is absolutely infectious, insanely memorable. I think both of the synth breakdowns in this song are absolutely fantastic. I also really love the section where everything kind of slows down and it has that slow beat, and then everything just kind of kicks back into high gear with the insane drums, and then drop kind of comes back in. I love it. Different is a song that takes a little bit of a darker turn, both in its lyrics and its composition. Some of the lines on this song are very creepy and unsettling. They kind of make you want to back away a little bit. And this atmosphere kind of lingers throughout the entire song, although I feel like the song's length does kind of serve as its downfall a little bit, because I feel like some of the fat could have been chopped out and this could have been a little bit more of an enjoyable song. Especially in the chorus and the breakdown sections, I do feel like things get a little bit repetitive. I really love the intro and the outro of this song though. Propane Nightmares is undeniably one of my favorite Pendulum tunes, and debatably one of the most iconic drum and bass songs of all time. Just about everything in this song is phenomenal. As a trumpeter myself, I really appreciate the usage of the horns. The lead melody of this song is forever going to be stuck in my head. I also think this is one of Rob Swire's shiniest moments as a songwriter, with the lyrics kind of depicting the Heaven's Gate cult. I think Rob does a really excellent job kind of trying to capture that hectic cult vibe. Visions is a song that I've never really cared for that much, and until recently I kind of had a hard time trying to figure out exactly why, but ultimately I think it's just the vocoder. It's really hard to understand the lyrics, and that kind of ruins the song for me. But I will say I do like the ending breakdown section. I think that's all really nice. Midnight Runner is really the only other song in the album that I don't care for that much. I think it does have its purpose on the album, kind of trying to capture that Hold Your Color vibe to hopefully hold fans over onto this album, but the melodies to me really are kind of uninteresting, and the song does drag on a little bit. The Other Side, on the other hand, is undeniably one of my favorites on this album, and I think largely because the guitars are just absolutely driving, and the talk box used in the hook, everything is just really infectious. Mutiny is another one that I really enjoy. It kind of switches things up from the standard drum and bass break beat to a jump up beat, and the lead melody that they use with this one, in my opinion, works really well with it. Also, there's that absolutely phenomenal guitar solo in this song, definitely one of my favorite moments on the album. 9,000 Miles is a little bit more liquid. It makes for a nice break in between all the chaos, a nice little song to relax to. The song Granite at this point in the album kind of feels like your standard Pendulum rock D&B hybrid. In terms of the flow of this album, I definitely think this song has its own purpose, but from the other rock D&B songs, I don't think it really stands out that much. And closing out the album, we've got the Tempest, which I've never actually been able to figure out if it's a reference to the Shakespeare play or not. It probably is in some sense. This is definitely one of the moments on the album where I feel like Pendulum was really reaching for those rock cliches. The Tempest seems to be the band's kind of attempt to do a rock like magnum opus, just making something really lengthy and epic and emotionally all-encompassing. Though I wouldn't put it up there with like a Knights of Sidonia, for example. I think this is one of the better tunes on the album. Has a lot of different moving parts that I feel like work together very harmonically. Yeah, just a solid closer to a solid album. In Silico is an album that I feel like got way too much flack from critics and fans alike. Ultimately ended up being one of the most influential drum and bass albums of this age. I also realized that in my initial recording of this review, I didn't actually give it a rating, so if I had to, I'd probably give it a strong 7.5 to a light 8 out of 10, more like 8 for legacy and 7.5 for personal taste and enjoyment. But that's about it. So, a very happy 10th anniversary to In Silico. I'm personally very much looking forward to reviewing the Pendulum Reworks album, even if I haven't been very thrilled by much of the content on it so far. If you want to listen to this album for yourself, as always, I have the Spotify link down in the description below, and if you have a great memory with this album, let me hear it down in the comments section. As always, I'm Landon Remixes. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll catch you later. Peace.